Firstly, I thank the organizers for the invitation to participate in this panel discussion, the first for this symposium. Unfortunately, I can't make those videos that you saw early on, but it reflects to me a lot of things from those videos. I sense optimism, I sense restoration of confidence coming through, but I think we are not out of the woods yet by any means. And I think not enough discussion is centered on the risks going forward. So I'll talk a little bit about what I believe is our situation. How do we go about addressing those situations, and what are maybe some of the issues we really need to wrap our thinking about. I'll do it in answering three questions. First, how deep is the hole we are in right now? Second, how do we dig ourselves out of this mess, of this hole? And thirdly, in doing that, digging ourselves up, we have to be mindful that we don't dig a deeper hole in the process. That's the risk that I think we need to also put in the forefront of our strategic planning. So how deep is the hole? I think we all know that. Let me just point out some of the facts. The economy, in my view, will not get back to where it was in 2019 until 2025. I differ from Shiri. He said 2024. I said, no, 2025. So that's a long period of gestation, long period of decline. Without COVID, our average growth rate in the long term is around 2%. In the long term. That's not enough to get us to where we want to go. We talk a lot about debt. We know it is the highest yet in history, but nobody talks about debt servicing too much. What is debt servicing? It's crowding out the essential expenses of government. In my calculation, 44% or 44 cents in each dollar that we get from domestic revenue goes to payment of our debt. That crowds out spending in government. The rising cost of living has been highlighted. Who has the solution? I haven't heard any solution to the cost of living so far. Another one is poverty. No one is talking about poverty. However you measure poverty, we know it is the highest ever in history. Poverty. Fiji's ranking in all global indices, like I think was shown in an earlier slide, it is all plummeting. We're nearly at the end of the queue for Fiji. And Pacific Island countries that used to be quite lower than us in terms of welfare and living standards, they're catching up. So to me, it is very, very important that we all agree where we are. How deep is that hole? And I think it is very deep. So the question number two that I have, how do we get out of that hole? How do we get out of those holes? We have seen a few solutions that are rising from multilateral institutions. We saw the Fiscal Review Committee, some proposals coming through. For me, I just have two. We reform, we transform. What are we reforming? A lot of discussions on revenue, government revenue it is, increasing VAT, taking away the exemptions. I think we should focus first on expenses. So reform your expenses, because we don't want to be spending hard-earned revenue on expenses that are wasteful. And that's my famous popular hobby, wasteful expenses, inefficient expenses. Remove that. Remove your wastage, not just some of the wastages that we know that are quite easy to identify, but those that are systematically in the budget. That's what we need to look for. And SOE. SOE takes up a lot of our money. We really need to look into these SOEs. We need reforms of SOEs. I'm advocating expenditure switching rather than expenditure reduction. You know? We switch expenditures. So the impact of that to the economy in terms of that is less. It will be more of a multiplier to the economy. What do we transform? I think we transform the economy, but I also want to stress that we want to transform us, the people, the people's minds, the change in mindsets, that is. Where do we diversify the economy? There's a lot of potential or options that we have, but I want to raise one which is staring us in the face, and that's our natural resources. That's our natural resources. I believe that the secret of the future development of this country rests on them. It's here, not outside the country. So when we look at the reforms of our resource-based industry or transformation, I just want to stress 2 or 3 words. Please innovate. We have done some of this in the past. They have failed miserably. Please integrate. They are not integrated into the value chain. Please, right up to capital and changing the mindsets. And I want to encourage that we bring the disparity of wealth, please, into this discussion. That's very important to the future stability, economic and political, for this country. The last question is, how do we not dig a bigger hole in the process? Let me just point out a few of the things that I think could be important there. I wish we make the people that squander our money, that abuse their officers, and break our laws to account. I want that, please. Because to me, corruption destroys initiative. Corruption destroys the economy, destroys confidence. So second, I wish we could make appointment based on merit. Please. It's probably wishful thinking in a political world. But I hope we don't just appoint because of political affiliations. The third, I think we should swallow some medicine now, before we find ourselves in a hospital bed sometime in the future. We swallow some medicine now. The next one, Rome was not built in a day. The destruction of our systems, of our institutions, of our processes in the last 15 years will take time to repair. We need to give ourselves time to do that. The next one, I think we talk a lot. We don't act enough. So as the Minister, Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned, this is the easier part. The next one is acting will be more difficult. And lastly, something that I am quite strong on or firm on, put people first in all our priorities. Put people first, particularly the ordinary people that don't have a voice in this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narube. I'll pick on the discussion from 2